Welcome to the Let Good Things In show. I'm your host, Amanda Acker. I'm so happy you're here. At the Let Good Things In show, we talk all about second chances, resiliency, following your intuition, and even music. Listen to hear stories of hope and to be inspired. Remember, you are stronger than you think. Let's dive in. Hi, my amazing humans. Thank you so much for tuning in today. On today's episode, I'm going to tell you some of my story and what inspired me to create this podcast. I wasn't sure how I was going to tell my story to you. The more I thought about it, I was like, if I'm going to tell my entire story to the world in one podcast episode, you'd have to be like glued to your phone for probably 24 to 48 hours. So nobody wants to do that. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to today tell you like the bullet point version of the story. And then I'm going to dive into the first part of my story and give you details on that specific part and those lessons that I learned in that part of my story. And then every Monday, I'm going to release the next part of my story. So think of it as you're listening to an audiobook, if you will. So that is how I'm going to do this. And let's dive in. If you would have told me even 3 years ago that I would have a husband who loves me, my kids were happy, we would have this beautiful home to live in, and my bank account wouldn't be at zero or negative every time I checked it anymore, I would have said, "You're crazy. That's not for me." I wouldn't have believed any of that. That's not my story. I don't deserve any of that. Because my life was a series of events that made me truly believe that I was a bad person and that I didn't deserve the good things. Wasn't allowed for me. You know, I'm a child of divorce. From that scenario of the divorce led me to countless toxic relationships and drug use and just no self-worth, failing out of college, overdosing, seeing my life actually flash before my eyes, giving up my babies for adoption, and being incarcerated. You know, as I sit here today telling you this story, I am still a convicted felon because of the choices I made in that time of my life. And after that experience, I spiraled into toxic relationships, abuse, lots of drinking. And all of that solidified my thought process of, I'm not good enough. As I mentioned earlier, I'm going to break my story up for you. And in today's episode, I'm going to talk to you about being a child of divorce and the lessons that I learned through that experience. So to give you some context, I'll give you a little bit about my childhood before the divorce. So I was always very, very close with my mother, to the point where my sister would make fun of us because we would spend all kinds of time together and laughing hysterically in her bedroom. She was my best friend, truly my best friend. And my dad, yes, he was there, but he wasn't emotionally there. I never felt comfortable going to my dad with anything emotional, whether it was good, bad, in between, whatever it was. I just didn't. So I didn't. But even though that was the case and me and my father were not close, I still had this strong pull that I needed to be closer with him. For some reason, something inside of me always told me, Amanda, you need to be close with your dad. But I never felt that ability to do so. There was always some sort of wall in between us. But at the age of 15, something changed. Something unexpected to me was happening. I was a freshman in high school, and just so you know, I was not popular in school. I wasn't the one going to the parties or, you know, I didn't even have friends. So we'll just put it that way. Um, so my mom, to reinforce that bond, like, she was my best friend. She was my only friend. So I'm coming home from freshman year of high school, and I'm so excited to get home and tell my mom, like, yay, it's over. I made it, all those things that teenagers do in high school. But when I came home, something was different. Didn't know what it was, but I noticed that my mother's car wasn't there, and that definitely made me feel like, I'm walking into something. So I opened the door, and my dad's sitting on the couch, and he looked so sad. Don't remember our exact conversation, but I remember his face. I remember seeing tears coming out of my father's eyes. Someone I looked up to as strong was crying. And he had to tell me that my mother had left. Like I said, I don't remember the conversation in detail, but I do remember feeling like, wait, so she's just gone? Like, is she coming back? What happened here? Why isn't my mom here? But she wasn't. And I was scared. I didn't know what was going to happen next. But I knew, even at the age of 15, I knew I needed to survive. And I knew I had to tell myself that everything was going to be okay. I just had to take it one step at a time. But the chaos of the divorce changed that thought process. I would hear my dad talking on the phone to people, talking about my mom in a bad way. And then my mother, who had left, was staying with my grandmother at the time. So occasionally she would see me and I would go over there and she would talk bad about my dad. So I was torn between the two of them. But at the same time, my dad, he was trying really hard to raise me and to give me what I needed as a teenager. And finally, I made that connection with my father. That connection that little Amanda really, really, really wanted. Had it. And I felt so happy. I was like, yes, I can do this. Like, I am strong. I'm strong enough and I'm good enough because I have my dad now. And one day my mother tells me that the cops were coming to arrest my father on a bench warrant because he didn't show up for a divorce hearing or whatever it was. I couldn't tell you the exact hearing it was, but he didn't come. And she told me, oh, don't tell your dad. So I didn't. I didn't think it was actually going to happen. So I told myself, even though my gut was telling me, Amanda, you need to tell your dad. He's here. He's caring for you. He's the one who's been here since this all started. But I didn't listen because I was too worried that my mother would be mad at me. The person who left me was more important for whatever reason. She was my best friend, right? So I truly just thought it wasn't going to happen. And then, knock, knock, knock. The cops are at our house. And I was upstairs. I was listening. I was like, oh no, oh no, oh no. Like, I've ruined everything. I should have told him. Oh no. I'm just so upset with myself. So I come downstairs. He got them to leave because I was underage, so he had to be there for me, obviously. So I come bolting down the steps after they leave, and I remember I fell to the floor. My dad's like, why are you crying? What's wrong? We're a team. We're a team. I remember he would always tell me, we're a team. And I told him because I knew it was the right thing to do. I told him the truth. And I said that I knew. I knew the cops were coming and I didn't tell you. And that is when our relationship went from my dream to there was now this space in between us again. And we started to slowly drift apart. And during all of this, my mom is in a new relationship with an abusive man, and she was just not her anymore. She had been going to see a psychiatrist and therapist, and they'd put her on all kinds of medications, saying she was bipolar and, all these things that she got diagnosed with at the time. But she just wasn't her. She just kept leaving this person, going back, leaving this person, going back. It was just this, I was just watching this cycle unfold before me. And I no longer knew my mother. And one day I was with her and she was not with him anymore. This was one of the times that she had left. We're at my grandmother's house and she's just hysterical. I didn't understand, so I didn't know what to do or say, and she got very angry. She took all her pills and laid them out on the counter, and she's telling me she's going to kill herself right then and there. And I can remember the fear, the pain, the confusion, all these emotions all at once. But still, as painful as this experience was turning out to be for myself, I needed to help her. So I told her, please, stop. I don't remember the exact conversation, but ultimately, thankfully and gratefully, she stopped and she sat down on this chair and told me that she needed to talk to my dad. And I knew, because there was obviously, they were not getting along, that my dad was not going to want to talk to her. But I figured, I'm going to call him. So I remember I called him, and he, within the blink of an eye, was there to pick me up. And in that moment, it was like, wow, my dad cares about me. And I'm back in this, I'm good enough. And look how strong I was. Look how strong I was. I did what I needed to do to get my mom out of that situation, but also learned that my dad was there for me no matter what. And the strength that it took for me to do those things. I started to think, I got this. But then, time goes on and my dad started dating, which was great. It was good for him. He needed to do that. But at the age that I was, I still needed him, but he kept wanting to go out on dates. So I started to feel like, okay, now I'm just in this house by myself. Okay, what do I do now? So he met his now wife, and they were always together. So I thought, I need to get his attention. Because by this point, my mother had gone back with the man I mentioned and was no longer, we didn't talk anymore. She was gone. So all I had was my dad. And I thought, I need to get his attention. What can I do? What can I do? So I made friends and I started partying and, skipping work. But none of it worked. Still the same battle. So I thought, what will really get him is if I run away. Mind you, I was 18 at this point, but I was still under his roof. So I run away with this guy who was older than me. And I thought, this was going to be what it was going to take. I remember calling him from a payphone, not to date myself here, and telling him, I ran away and trying to act all cool, for everyone else. And, he demanded that I come home. So I did. I came home, but it didn't work. I made everything worse. So the trust I have for myself that I had in the beginning of all this is now pretty much gone. Just kept making the wrong choice. My dad just started living his own life without me. And then it came time for me to go to college, and I really didn't want to go. I wanted to join the Marines. And then I thought, you know what, I'll just take a year off. Because I just felt something in my gut telling me that now is not the time for you to go. You need more time. But my dad insisted. So even though I knew what my gut was telling me, I was forced to go against what I knew I needed. So then I go off to college, which will be what I talk about on the next episode. Now, when I look back at the story of my parents' divorce and the details that I gave you after the divorce and the experiences that I had gone through, I learned back then my strength, that I was strong, even though the decisions I was making at those young ages weren't right necessarily. I was doing the things that I needed to do to survive because of my circumstances. So my affirmation for you is I am stronger than I think. I am capable of amazing things. I am worth it, and I am enough just as I am. Thank you so much for listening today. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, I wanted to let you know what inspired me to even create this podcast. Not that long ago, I was thinking about my past and all the things I'd been through and how long it took me to get out of shame and guilt from the choices and the things that have happened to me in my past. And, I started looking at my life as it is now, and I was like, you know what? I want to share my story and the stories of others to the world to inspire and give hope to those who are still in that frame of mind that I was in only a few years ago. Because I want everyone out there to know that they're worth it and that no matter what we've been through, we can have the life we imagine having. So I have a few things for you today. Make sure that you join my Facebook group. The link is in the show notes, or you can search it on Facebook. It's called the Let Good Things In Show. And once you join, I'm going to invite you to be a guest on an upcoming live Zoom group where we're going to talk about the episodes and dive into how the episodes made you feel and if you have any questions or things like that. And that's going to be recorded as well. And I'm going to be uploading those as bonus episodes. And everyone will be able to put their links in the show notes. So make sure to join my Facebook group for that. And don't forget to hit that follow or subscribe button so you don't miss an episode of the show. And just one more thing before I go. Remember, you are stronger than you think you are. And you can have the life you imagine, regardless of your past. I will talk to you all next week in the next segment, which will be about my college experience and what led me to fail out and the decisions I made after failing out of college. And that is all. Talk to y'all soon.